Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, news, lifestyle, everything really, depending on the guests we talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. You'll recognize my guests from a lot of really cool TV shows, specifically 911 Lone Star on Fox. Brian Michael Smith is with us. Brian, welcome to Popternative.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
No problem. We'll get into 911 Lone Star and your other projects. But, for the people that follow you on social media, your description, it says that you're an actor, but it says that you're also an advocate. Talk a little bit about that. How important is it for Brian Michael Smith to be an advocate?
I think it's really important for me, just based on my own life journey and experience. I feel like I wouldn't be where I am right now and be able to do the work that I'm doing if it wasn't for the advocacy work of people who came before me in the Black community and in the LGBTQ community, So I came up doing a lot of community work through youth programs and whatnot, in my own neighborhood. And then when I moved to New York, I worked at the LGBTQ community center in Manhattan and then the youth program. I just saw how important it is for young people to have advocates speaking on their behalf and sort of carving out the way. So in addition to the work that I want to do on screen, I also want to make sure that I'm using my voice off screen to, carve out paths for people like me or people who are not like me, but, have a tough road to go. And, you kind of need somebody to clear things out.
And it's interesting because people that kind of follow you, on the shows you've been on, there has been that kind of advocacy, like you said, when you're off the screen, but also when you're on the screen as well. It's incorporated in that. Talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I came in and I had an opportunity to just focus on acting and sort of taking any role that came my way as I paid my dues, worked my way from background and featured work, to co-stars and just kind of made a name for myself out in New York. And then I got to a place where it's like, I have a unique experience as an artist. What do I want to bring to TV that I didn't see? And what do I want to, what stories do I want to tell that, maybe other people aren't as qualified as I am to tell? As some people, make a difference in the world by, sort of going out in the street and doing direct action. Some people, write articles. I'm a performer. So I wanted to bring those two elements of my life together. And I wanted to bring characters on screen that I didn't see that I felt like would help me. So, a lot of, trans characters that, came on screen, if they weren't trans feminine and they were trans masculine, a lot of the emphasis usually would be on the early part of their transition or even before they transition or the transition itself. But there's all this life that happens afterwards, just like with anybody else. There's all this life that happens after you're a teenager where you learn a lot and, you really shape who you are. So I wanted to create characters that, explored those untold stories and shared that part of life.
And when you were growing up, because for people that kind of, follow your journey and everything, you were doing some stuff before acting as well. You were teaching, you were doing other things. But in terms of the acting bug, when did that kind of hit you? And what were some of kind of the projects or, movies that kind of drew you towards that kind of craft?
Oh, man, I've always loved to perform. I was a class clown. I grew up in a relatively large family and full of storytellers. You couldn't just tell somebody what happened today. Everybody had to act it out. So it was kind of, just kind of part of my DNA and my family. And then when I got into school, I got a chance to actually start to, do plays and whatnot. And I really enjoyed it. And I was a latchkey kid growing up in the 80s and the 90s. So I spent a lot of time watching, TV and movies. And I was just so drawn into these other worlds. Like it was something that was so cool about, feeling like I left my house or I left the movie theater and I went somewhere. And I feel like one of the first movies, that I can recall that really had a profound impact on me, that really made me think like, I gotta go to Hollywood and try to do this, was Titanic of all the movies. But it was something about it. Like, I think maybe because it was 3 hours and I had no concept of what a cruise ship was like and just the scale of it. And it just took me somewhere on this whole journey. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to be a part of that,
Directed by James Cameron, Canada. I just gotta say it because I'm Canadian. Every time I have an opportunity, I always say Canada. It's kind of like a run-up.
Baby, yeah. No, Cameron's movies. I mean, like The Terminator, Judgment Day. Like I love that kind of epic storytelling. These are the kind of things that kind of pulled me into the kinds of shows I'm doing right now, like it's action oriented 911 Lone Star, where you see people stepping up in the extreme situations.
And we're going to talk about that right now. I mean, that show is just the fan base around and the support around that show is just unbelievable. Like, that's one thing I've kind of noticed. I'm watching it, and I'm going on social media and going on Twitter, Brian, and I'm seeing like all the interactions. And it's like up there with like some of the biggest shows in terms of like the passion of these fans. Talk a little bit about that.
It's been like really, really incredible to see the response to the show. I mean, as a fan of the original show,
Yes.
I was kind of like in that crowd where like I could not wait to see what's going to happen next. I love that social media makes it possible for you to actually interact with the people making your show, whether it's the writers on there or like the actual actors. So I was kind of surreal to go from a participant to somebody on the receiving end of like kind of all the love and support and questions. I mean, like they make GIFs of me that I send around. You know what I mean?
You're
like,
a GIF, isn't that cool? Like, you're a GIF. Strickland's a GIF.
Like straight up, like it's really interesting. We're like I'm going to like send some GIF and like my face pops up from something from the show, because some fans made something, or just fans reaching out, from a place of like just earnest and like how my characters had an impact on their lives in some like significant way. So that's been really cool too.
I find it very interesting because there's a lot of shows, a lot of drama shows, and I find they're kind of moving towards, there's a lot of those shows out there like CSI, a lot of those shows that have a lot of seasons, right? And then like you can kind of go and just watch an episode from season 5 because there's storylines here and there, but it's just mainly on one thing type thing. I mean, I feel like that's kind of changing a little bit. I feel like people kind of want you to watch 911 Lone Star from the beginning, and they have kind of important stuff that kind of continues to kind of happen throughout kind of different episodes and kind of continue on. Do you know what I mean by that a little bit about the drama? Like, how like CSI, all those shows, Criminal Minds, right? You can just go and just watch one episode. That's changing a little bit, I find.
It is. I think now that, people are binging more, they want that kind of continuous through line, you know what I mean? So we're kind of going back a little bit. Because I feel like that was kind of the standard of TV when there was only a few channels, and things were very, serialized. So it's like, okay, you got to tune in next week to see what happens after this, see what happens after this, and you can really take that journey and watch the characters grow. And I feel like because, so many shows are now available that you can watch all 100 episodes straight through, people kind of have a hunger for that kind of storytelling. And, I think we can do it, you know what I mean? There's more opportunities to deliver content to people. So you have time and you have the scripts, and you can make it happen. So it's really great to see that.
Absolutely,
especially as an actor, because I know that I can take this character on a journey. You know what I mean, and I can watch how this character evolves along with the fans.
Two-part question about 911 Lone Star. I mean, part one, talk a little about your character. What can we expect with Strickland? We fan favorite. We love that character. And then part two is kind of like, what's it like working with the cast? Rona Rubenstein, Rob Lowe. Like, talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I love Paul Strickland. I like he has so many qualities that are like kind of really built upon like my own.
It's a fan favorite for sure.
Qualities. Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate that very much, because you never know how people are going to respond to what you're doing, and you just kind of get in there and try to find truth around them in reality. So I feel like he has these elements that are like definitely me, and then there's this stuff that was not me that I had to figure out how can I bring some reality to it. He's more of an observational guy. He's a think first before he speaks kind of person, and he's outgoing when you get to know him, but he's very protective. Where I'm very much, I'm pretty forward facing. You're going to get my trust before you earn it sometimes. So it's really cool to find how to differentiate, myself from him, and then to just learn from him and his way of being. So that was a really cool experience. And then working with the cast has been amazing. Like I didn't really know anyone that I was working with, and I didn't know what I was going to get into. But everybody brings their own unique personality and like passions to the show, and like they're just down to play, so that's been really fun to discover how everybody plays and like how they find things. And as we got to know each other throughout season one, it was cool to see the writers taking some of our natural dynamics as, just actors and people getting to know each other and working it into the character dynamics in the show. So you kind of see a lot more of that as we get into season two. And we start to split up a little bit. Some of it's kind of loosely based because of COVID protocols, but then just in the writing, you get to see other characters interacting with characters that maybe they didn't spend that much time with in season one. And you can kind of see how their relationships have grown and changed over time.
Absolutely. Well, now on Lone Star, I mean, there's obviously the characters that are the leads that have a lot of big storylines, but there's a lot of other characters, that show up, and there's a lot of really cool opportunities for a lot of different kind of actors on the show. A lot of them kind of get cool screen time, little like storylines here and there. Do you think it's safe to say that even though not like I don't think the first thing that comes to mind is ensemble cast when you think of 911 Lone Star. Of course, there are a lot of characters on it, right? But there are definitely shows like Orange is the New Black that are more like, when it comes to mind, you'll say it's like ensemble right away because of the characters. But are we kind of seeing a trend now in content, Brian, where the pie is there's more pieces of the pie for people, more characters and shows? Like, what do you think about that? Because that's something I've noticed a little bit as well.
I 100% agree that there's more representation. You know what I mean? And I feel like in an effort to have more representation, and just kind of giving you the audience more of an experience of real life, is that there's more of different kinds of people, which is what life is actually like. And so, I definitely feel like we're seeing more of an ensemble base, because it gives the writers more to do. It gives you more places to go. So if you want to have a show that's going to last 3 seasons, how many things can happen to the same person over and over again before you kind of start to, not be able to suspend disbelief. But when you have, 5 to 7 characters, you can see something change, or they can experience something that, maybe somebody else didn't experience. So it gives everybody a little bit of something to kind of watch and to key into, which I think makes for stronger television.
And I feel like too, there's a lot of characters. It's crazy to me, and this goes back sitcoms in the '90s as well. But like people that were on like 1 or 2 episodes of a show that was on for like 8 seasons, let's say, and people know them just from 1 episode, or like it's just like, that's crazy too, right? That kind of, I feel like, shows the effectiveness of kind of the writing and the performance as well, right? Like if you could remember like 1 episode of like a 9 season run, you're doing there's something
doing something very right.
Exactly.
Yes, for sure.
It's so interesting to see. You talked a little bit about it, character dynamic, when to work on the show and everything, learning in COVID and everything, but anytime you work on a project, if you worked on a lot of really cool other shows as well, anytime you work on a show, there's going to be learning experiences. So it doesn't have to be 911 Lone Star. It could be other projects, Queen Sugar, other projects you've been on and worked on. But what have been some kind of key learning experiences for yourself as a storyteller working on these shows, Brian?
Ooh, I mean, I feel like each project and each day I pick up something new, because even for me,
we're always going to learn. Absolutely.
I know, right? And this is, Lone Star was my first series regular roles, and there was a lot that came with that I had to kind of pick up on. But I think one of the most profound things that I learned was when I was doing background work early on in my career. When I was taking class, I thought one of the best ways to learn is like to be on set, and I got an opportunity to do background work on The Dark Knight Rises. And it was a 3-day thing. So because we're doing a lot of stunts, and they wanted to make sure that everybody was going to be safe. And I just remember the day that we got there to actually film the scene. And, I'm there, like 60 feet away from Christopher Nolan and Tom Hardy, the stunt coordinator, and Christian Bale. And, they're having a conversation about what the fight is going to be. And like, in my mind, at that time, I thought that, there's a script, the director tells you what you want to do, and then you do it, and you make your body, or you kind of make it happen to whatever the director tells you to do. But sitting there and observing that conversation, it was such a creative and collaborative conversation where, Tom and Christian were like talking about, well, it feels like it makes more sense if I do this. And, if this happens like that, I think the struggle can really get hit here, and we can really punctuate this moment. And it was like, wow. So I think I got a really clear understanding about how collaborative, especially camera acting for the camera, is You know what I mean? From like just that day of observation and just how much of input that I will have as an actor. I'm not just there to take direction. Like my ideas matter, and it can enhance what's going on. So that was like something I tucked away and like pulled from all the time.
Absolutely. And you're acting on the show, you're acting on 911 Lone Star, but I'm seeing kind of the importance and a lot of people kind of wearing many hats in the entertainment industry and kind of getting their feet wet with a lot of other kind of facets of the industry, whether it being script writing, screenplays, whether it's directing or producing. I feel like a lot of people are kind of wearing those many hats. Does Brian Michael Smith see himself kind of wearing many hats or kind of experimenting with writing and directing a lot more rather than just acting? Is that kind of something that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, my background's in like all video and film production.
Yeah.
I ended up switching majors when I was in college because I need to know more because I want to be able to create the kinds of stories that matter to me, and maybe people who say yes and greenlight things are going to be interested in the things that I want to say, or they're not going to be interested in casting me to play the kinds of characters that I want to play. So I want to know how to do this. And so I have that background, and I've written some shorts, and I've produced some things, and I had I've done that in the past, but now I feel like as I'm deepening my roots in performance and kind of moving deeper into sort of higher level productions, I'm learning and pulling from that. So now I'm interested in going back to okay, I want to create a story of this caliber.
Back to the roots almost.
Yeah, and I want to now that I kind of have a better understanding of how things operate at this level, it's like I'm getting kind of inspired to do that. I feel this pull towards film as well. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. And I've always enjoyed working and collaborating with other actors. So I am interested in directing at some point as well.
Oh, amazing. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on Popternative to chat. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me again. It's wonderful, man. And congrats on the show and the rise in numbers, man.
Oh, I appreciate that for sure. So obviously, 911 Lone Star. I mean, people can go and watch it from the top, binge watch it on Fox right now.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. It's on Fox now. You can catch up on season 1 because season 2 is going to start on January 18th.
January, calm before the storm a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It's like pretty soon. It's like
it's going down. It's like 6 days away. I'm like, and we're coming out hot. Let me tell you, man. They're coming in with a bang.
Absolutely. Where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at the Brian Michael, and you can follow me on Instagram at the _Brian Michael.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Congrats so far with all the success of your career. I hope it kind of gets bigger and bigger for you. And we're excited for season 2. Let's go.
All right, man. Thank you.
Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Brian Michael Smith and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.